Let's begin with another session. Today we will discuss about not the topics of grammar, but how do I prepare for grammar for the run up to the non-CAT exams. In the CAT exams, as we are all aware, we do not have any grammar and vocabulary questions. But let's discuss how do I prepare for the non-CAT exam, because that will give you around there will be 10 questions of grammar will be there, and normally ZAT believes in a traditional pattern. By traditional what I mean is they will give you questions with fill in the blanks, and you have to fill it up with prepositions and articles and all this kind of questions. They'll give you. They will also give you sentence correction question. IIFT 2 will give you quite a number of grammar questions. And of course, SNAP and MAT and all, they have grammar questions. Now, how do I prepare for these grammar questions? The question comes, do I start reading a grammar book? That's what the students ask me. So, do I start reading the grammar books? And which book do I read? Well, I don't suppose no, you need to read an entire grammar book for this non-CAT management exam, entrance exams, because the number of questions that you get and the range from which you get the questions, you don't have to be so exhaustive. And reading a grammar book, taking a Wren & Martin or any of those kind of things and reading it, I suppose would be too heavy. And I would not suggest that you take a grammar book and start reading grammar. Mostly the questions that you get in grammar are basic questions, basic knowledge of prepositions and articles, some questions related to subject-verb agreement, questions related to this nominative and accusative cases in pronoun or parallelism. You will get replacement of underlined sentences questions, which you will find in IIFT. You will find that, and that will might entail some modifier questions, because modifier questions, as you understand, modifiers are structural errors and they are not specific like a prepositional error or tense error or kind of an error, so that I can identify one particular error, right, as we do it in the error spotting or the sentence correction question as we have. So it's not that kind. It's a structural error. So that question, a variant of modifiers, will be either replacement of underlined sentences that we'll get. One. Second is the same sentence will be given in 4 different ways, and you have to identify which sentence is grammatically, structurally, usage-wise correct. So these are different variants how you get the modifier questions. But you will get definitely questions related to subject-verb agreement, questions related to parallelism, and some questions you might get from prepositions and nominative accusative case. So this normally what we have observed. A quick analysis of the question papers or the questions that had been there in the previous years, this is what you can find out. Means the bulk of the questions are from pronouns. The bulk of the questions that you get, and they are from pronouns. And pronouns, of course, you have this subject-verb agreement and all those, nominative, accusative case, all are related to pronouns. So you will get your most of the questions from that. Now, how do I prepare? Do I start reading the grammar book? No, I will not suggest that. Rather, I will suggest you an inclusive grammar. What does that mean? Is you start solving questions related to grammar, grammatical errors, the sentence correction error, parallelism, and you start solving questions from those areas you solve. And once you have solved questions from there, whatever portion you get an error, from there you can then go to the explanatory answer as to if this is the error is this question has, or if you have been able to identify that error. So then we're good, because you know the concept, because of which the grammatical rule that applies to this, because of which this sentence there is an error in this sentence, or you might take a guess and you might get it right, or you may get it wrong. So if you are taking a guess and getting that answer right, or if you're getting that answer wrong, then try to find out from the explanatory answers as to what is the correct answer. Right? Once you have read that explanation, you will see that the question setter or the one who has given the explanatory answer, he has also explained why this question is wrong, this sentence is wrong, what grammatical rule applies to this, what concept, based on which concept this grammar is incorrect. So all that would have been explained. Now, if you are able to understand it and if you've already done these portions before, then you will be able to quickly link what the answer setter has, or the examiner who has answered it, he has mentioned. And if not, whatever concept he has mentioned in the explanatory answer, then you can go to the grammar book, read that concept, understand that concept well, and then you will see when you do the other questions, different questions of the same type, means where that same kind of an error is present, automatically this will come to your mind that, okay, in that previous question I had done this question and there was this mistake and the concept which was given was this, and according to that that concept, this answer should be this and not this. Right? So first read the do the questions, and every day I would suggest just 5 error spotting questions, because if you are doing even 5 error spotting questions in 30 days, you are around 150. It means almost you would have revised lots of portion of grammar, at least 2, 3, 4 times you would have revised certain concepts of grammar by that time. एंड अगर किसी भी कंसेप्ट को हम 3, 4, 5 बार तब तक अगर हम लोग ये कर लिए होंगे, रिवाइज कर लिए होंगे अगेन एंड अगेन, तो वो तो बेसिकली याद ही रह जाएगा. सो 30 डेज में अगर हम 150 क्वेश्चंस करते हैं, कोई लोड नहीं है, क्योंकि आइदर ग्रामर में क्या है, आइदर इन दैट सेंटेंस यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई द एरर और यू आर नॉट एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई द एरर. If you are able to identify the error, good. If you are not able to identify the error, then again it will take you hardly say 15 seconds to know that you don't know the error. Even if you know the error, you will still take 15 seconds to know where the error is and answer it. So anyway, 5 questions might hardly take you to answer 2-3 minutes max. And once you have finished that, then try to cross check with the explanatory answers. So practice it from some study material where the explanatory answer has been given, and from there then you go to the grammar book. So no need of reading an entire high school grammar for just some 7 or 10 questions, which is on the higher side. 10 is on the higher side, some 7. Like banking SSC, they get a lot of questions, lots and lots of questions related to grammar, that is error spotting and all that. So they might have to study it exhaustively, go deep into it, and might be do in a very the study of grammar in a very systematic manner and all. But here in the non-CAT management exams, you don't have to put all that, take all that trouble, because the number of questions are very limited. So why unnecessarily bother yourself of taking up a Grennan Martin or a high school grammar, reading it all throughout? There's no point in it. So I'll not suggest that. Then another question they ask is, so which all portions are important? I just told you. If we look at the past 10 years question papers of various entrances, where verbal ability is there, where verbal ability and grammar, obviously where verbal ability is there means grammar has to be a very important part of it. If you look at it, most of the errors are from pronouns, right? So guys, focus on pronouns, and in that pronouns will come your subject verb agreement. There will be this accusative nominative case, there will be this possessive case. So the pronouns, that is personal pronouns, that is first person, second person, third person, or the reflexive pronouns. There are certain words which will specifically take reflexive pronouns after it, just like suppose I write a sentence that I enjoyed the vacation a lot, or we enjoyed the vacation a lot. So there the sentence grammatically is incorrect. We enjoyed ourselves during the vacation a lot because enjoy, avail, pride, absent. There are certain words which will always take a reflexive case after it. Like he availed himself of the opportunity. He availed the opportunity is wrong. He availed himself of the opportunity. That is the sentence. So these are certain nuances of grammar which might be skips our attention or we haven't given much attention to it. Then another one is that nominative accusative case. Guys, we have often said, and at least I've heard, and even I had been using it for long before I knew and changed. He is as tall as me. Right? No, he is as tall as me. The sentence is improper, is incorrect. But we have been speaking. He is as tall as me or he is as old as me is wrong. Because he is a nominative case, right? Or a subjective case. And me is a accusative case or the objective case. And as dash as is a comparison. And when we are comparing, a subject will be compared with a subject and an object has to be compared with an object. How can we compare a subject with object? Because he is a subjective case, me is an objective case, and we are comparing he with a subjective case with the objective case. So the sentence here is wrong. There it should be he is as old as I or he is as old as I. And not even am. He is as tall as I am. No, not am. Am is the verb which is mentally supplied. Similarly, they play cricket as well as us. So again, that's wrong because they is a subjective case, us is an objective case, and again I am comparing a subjective case with an objective case. So they play cricket as well as we. Full stop. Not do. The verb do is not required because that is mentally supplied. So there are these kind of nuances of grammar which we have to be a little aware of because that normally skips our attention. Then there's the string of adjectives, then arrangement of the pronouns. So if there is, say, suppose in one sentence you find all the three persons, first person, second person, third person, like I, you and he. Now suppose in a sentence there are all the three persons, I first person singular, he third person singular, you second person singular, plural, both. Now when we have to arrange it, so what should be the arrangement? It is known as grammar of good manners, guys. Might be that sounds a little peculiar. Grammar of good manners, yes, because when the sentence implies that it is something which is to be appreciated, felicitated, some accolades for something that you have done, something praiseworthy, something positive, then the arrangement is it has to be second person, third person, and last should be the first person. You, he, and I. Right? It has to be you, he, and I because you are giving importance to others, keeping yourself I to the last. And just the reverse when it is about taking blame for something, being reprimanded for something. In that case, again, I will come to the front. I, you, and he. So that is why it is grammar of good manners. Then the string of adjectives where you have to, if there is a different adjectives in a sentence, then how you should arrange, what should be the sequence of the adjectives when it is arranged in a sentence. So all that also you have to keep in mind. So these are small certain things. Use of an, right? We during the school days we had studied about A, E, I, O, U. But again, then why do we use an before an MLA, an MP, an NCC cadet? We use an, no? Even before an honest man, he left an hour ago. Before H also we use. Why do we use it? Then again, if it is A, E, I, O, U, then why do we not use an before European? Why don't we use an before university? Why don't we use an before unique? Because it has something to do with the pronunciation of the first syllable, the movement of our speech organs. For a sound to be converted into speech, there are 16 speech organs which comes into play to convert a sound into speech. You do not have to go so deep into the things, just a basic idea, know it. So when I pronounce the first syllable of a word and my speech organs aren't involved, my lips, my teeth, upper palate, lower palate, tongue, middle of the tongue, tip of the tongue, and all these speech organs are not involved in the production of the pronunciation of the first syllable, then there I use an. H is known as a voiceless fricative. So when I say H, no, it's silent. That's why it is, he's an honest man. He is humble. He left an hour ago. It is an historic moment. So I don't say H. And even there is a little bit of mother tongue influence as we slowly move towards the southern part of the country, and we find they pronouncing it as H. So some of them I said H they pronounce. But my friends, according to phonetics, that doesn't have a pronunciation. It's a voiceless fricative, and you don't pronounce or you don't utter H. So it goes as silent, and that's why we use an. So these are certain nuances of grammar, and particularly it and its, use of possessive case in pronoun, use of apostrophe in its, and use of apostrophe with a proper noun. Like say Ravi's bike, the bike belonging to Ravi. So possession with Ravi, so I will use apostrophe as Ravi's bike. But when I say the chair's leg, the sentence becomes wrong. Because with inanimate objects, non-living objects, we do not use apostrophe. We will change the sentence structure. We'll say the leg of the chair, not the chair's leg. The car's tire punctured is wrong. The tire of the car punctured. Understood? So these are the way we use possessive case. And in it and its and its, ITS and IT apostrophe S. I know many of you know this. It's very simple. But again, let me again tell you that in several exams, year after year, I find the question setter definitely giving this question. And if you have a sentence where this its is mentioned, be very careful. Somewhere around that it or its and apostrophe its, the error would be there. So its with an apostrophe is the short form for it is. And its without an apostrophe is possessive case. Its, yours, all these are without apostrophe, they are possessive case. So look for these nuances of grammar. Solve 5 questions of error spotting every day. Try to understand the concept. If you understand, good, from the explanation that has been given, or else then you can go back to the grammar book and then check that concept, read that concept, and then you will be able to understand why that error is. Reading a grammar book, taking an entire grammar book of high school grammar or some other grammar, if you take Nesfield grammar or this Wren and Martin grammar book, and you start reading it, that will be too exhaustive. Rather, you should invest more time in doing your vocabulary or RC questions and all those, where you get more number of questions. Right? So in the next video, we will discuss about the type of vocabulary questions and how do you try and how do you master those, and what all things you have to keep in mind when you are doing the vocabulary questions. Right?